Embers of vengeance. The escape pod tumbled through the void, its single occupant staring with hollow eyes at the remains of Astralis colony burning in the distance. Captain Elias Reeves pressed his palm against the viewport, watching the once thriving human settlement now reduced to smoldering ruins. His home, his family, all gone. The Vraxian ships hung in orbit like obsidian monoliths, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. 15 hours ago, they had appeared without warning, dropping out of quantum space directly above the colony's defensive grid. Now, only debris and ash remained. Initiating stealth protocols, the pod's AI announced. Quantum signature dampeners active. Elias barely registered the words. His mind replayed the attack in vivid, excruciating detail. The colony's shields had failed within minutes, not because they were weak. Astralis had the most advanced defensive technology in human space, but because the Vraxians somehow knew their exact resonance frequencies. This wasn't a random attack. It was surgical, precise. The memory of his wife, Lila's last transmission, cut through him like a physical pain. She had been in the colony's central research facility with their daughter, Zoe. They're targeting the quantum labs, Eli. They knew exactly. Then nothing but static. The pod shuddered as it engaged its emergency FTL drive, designed for a single short jump. Elias didn't even care where it would take him. What did it matter? He had failed to protect them, failed to see the threat until it was too late. His hand moved to the pocket of his scorched uniform, fingers brushing against the small device he'd recovered during his desperate escape. It was unlike anything he'd seen before. A crystalline object the size of his palm that pulsed with an inner light. He had found it clutched in the hand of a dying Vraxian soldier, the alien's exoskeleton breached by colony security's last stand. The dying alien had looked directly at him, its compound eyes reflecting Elias's shocked face. The architects will not allow your ascension, it had gurgled before expiring. The pod jolted as it exited FTL, the sudden return to normal space throwing Elias against his restraints. Through the viewport, a small trading outpost came into view. Helios Station, a neutral port on the edge of human space, where questions weren't asked and credits spoke louder than loyalties. 3 days later, Elias sat in the back corner of a dimly lit bar on Helios, his appearance now drastically changed. Gone was the clean-cut Alliance captain. His beard had grown in, and he'd traded his uniform for nondescript civilian clothes. His military-grade neural implant had been disconnected to avoid detection. "You're a hard man to find, Captain Reeves," a voice said as someone slid into the seat across from him. Elias's hand moved to the pulse pistol concealed under the table. "You have me confused with someone else." The stranger, a woman with dark skin and a network of silver implants tracing her jawline, smiled without humor. "The Alliance thinks you're dead. The official report says all hands were lost at Astralis." "Who are you?" "Nex. I represent people who know what really happened at your colony." She leaned forward. "And why the Vraxians targeted it specifically." Elias's fingers tightened around his weapon. "Talk." "Not here." She slid a data chip across the table. "This contains coordinates. Come alone, or don't come at all." She rose to leave. "And Captain, that artifact you took from the Vraxian soldier, bring it." The coordinates led Elias to an abandoned mining facility on Helios's moon. As he approached in a rented shuttle, his tactical training screamed trap. But if this Nyx knew about the artifact, she might have answers. And answers were the first step toward vengeance. Inside, he found not just Nyx, but a diverse group of individuals, humans and non-humans alike. They called themselves the Nexus, an intelligence network that had been tracking the Vraxian collective for years. "The attack on Astralis wasn't random," Nyx explained, activating a holographic display showing multiple human colonies that had been attacked over the past decade. "The Vraxians are systematically targeting human quantum research facilities." "Why?" Elias demanded. A reptilian alien stepped forward, introducing himself as Kextor, a defector from a species allied with the Vraxians. Because they fear you, or rather, what humanity might become. Elias learned that his wife's research team had been on the verge of a breakthrough, a new form of quantum communication that would revolutionize interstellar travel and potentially allow humanity to access higher dimensions of reality. The Vraxians serve entities they call the Architects, Kextor explained. Ancient beings who believe they alone should determine which species ascend to higher understanding. And that artifact. Nix pointed to the crystal device Elias had recovered. It's a Vraxian command key, capable of accessing their secure networks. With it, we could potentially track their movements, maybe even predict their next target. For the first time since the attack, a flicker of purpose ignited within Elias. I don't care about prediction. I want to hit them back. That's suicide, said a former Alliance soldier among the group. The Vraxian fleet is the most powerful in the quadrant. Then we don't target their fleet, Elias replied, his military mind already formulating a strategy. We target their intelligence network, cut off their information, and even the strongest enemy becomes vulnerable. Over the next weeks, Elias and the Nexus worked to decrypt the command key. Each night, he was haunted by dreams of Layla and Zoe. Sometimes they were alive, begging him to find them. Other times, they simply stared at him with accusing eyes. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While experimenting with the device, Elias accidentally exposed it to a quantum field generator. The crystal resonated, projecting a holographic star map showing Vraxian outposts, including one just 2 systems away. That's a communications relay, Kextor identified. It coordinates Vraxian fleet movements across this entire sector. Elias studied the projection. How well is it defended? Minimally, Nix replied. The Vraxians rely on secrecy, not firepower, for facilities like these. Then that's our target, Elias declared. We take it out, and we send a message. The hunted are now the hunters. Planning the operation consumed Elias. He pored over tactical simulations, equipment specifications, and the limited intelligence they had on Vraxian security protocols. The Nexus, impressed by his strategic mind, gradually accepted his leadership. On the eve of the mission, Nix found Elias alone in the facility's observation dome, staring at the stars. You should rest, she said. Every time I close my eyes, I see them, he replied quietly. My wife, my daughter, the colony burning. Revenge won't bring them back. Elias turned to her, his eyes reflecting the starlight. This isn't just about revenge. The Vraxians won't stop with Astralis. They'll keep destroying human colonies, eliminating any threat to their architect's vision of the universe. And after tomorrow, if we succeed, we find their next target before they strike. We warn our people. And then, he looked down at his hands, which had once been used to protect, now transformed into instruments of retribution. Then we burn their world like they burned mine. As the infiltration team prepared to depart, a coded transmission reached their base. It contained only a brief message and a set of biometric data. Survivors from Astralis held at Vraxian Research Facility. Layla Reeves among them. Elias stared at the name, his heart hammering against his ribs. It couldn't be. He had seen the research complex explode, but the attached DNA signature was unmistakable. It could be a trap, Nix warned. Or it could be true, Elias countered, a dangerous hope kindling within him. He turned to the assembled team, his resolve hardening. Our mission just changed. We're not just taking out a communications relay anymore. What are we doing? Asked Kextor. Elias's eyes burned with a fire that made even the veteran fighters step back. We're going to make the Vraxians regret the day they took everything from me. The infiltration ship silently detached from the mining facility, its course set for the Vraxian outpost. Inside, Elias clutched a pendant containing the holo image of his family, his thumb tracing the outline of Layla and Zoe's faces. I'm coming for you, he whispered. and heaven help anyone who stands in my way. Flames of retribution. The Vraxian outpost hummed like a dark spider in the void, its central hub connected to 8 radiating arms. From their cloaked approach vessel, Elias studied the structure through tactical displays. Unlike the massive warships that had devastated Astralis, this facility emphasized function over intimidation, a communications relay coordinating Vraxian fleet movements across the sector. Approaching drop zone, Nyx announced from the pilot's seat, stealth systems holding. Elias checked his gear one final time. A modified combat suit with built-in quantum dampeners to mask his life signs, a high-yield plasma rifle, and the Vraxian command key now integrated into his gauntlet. The 6-person strike team watched him, waiting for final instructions. "Remember," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him, "our primary objective is to access their central database and locate the research facility where the Astralis survivors are being held. Secondary objective is to sabotage this relay." He looked at each team member. "If the intel is false, if this is a trap, we abort and regroup at the emergency coordinates." Kextor, the reptilian defector, hissed softly. "The message mentioned only Layla Reeves, not your daughter." Elias had been avoiding that thought. "One step at a time," he replied, though the absence of Zoe's name gnawed at him like acid. They boarded the infiltration pods, small, virtually undetectable vessels designed for stealth insertions. As the launch sequence initiated, Elias closed his eyes briefly. Not a prayer. He'd abandoned those when he watched his home burn. But a promise. Today, the Vraxians would learn that humans weren't simply prey to be hunted. The infiltration went smoother than expected. Using the command key, they bypassed the outpost's perimeter sensors and gained entry through a maintenance airlock. Inside, the architecture was distinctly alien. Angular corridors with surfaces that seemed to absorb sound and light, creating an unsettling silence. "Life signs," Elias whispered. "Minimal," replied Saren, their tech specialist. "Most areas are automated, detecting approximately 20 Vraxians, mainly in the central hub. They move through the station like ghosts, the quantum dampeners rendering them nearly invisible to Vraxian scanning technology. When they encountered the occasional patrol, Kextor's knowledge of Vraxian behavior patterns proved invaluable, allowing them to avoid detection. The communications center was located at the facility's core, a vast chamber dominated by crystalline structures that pulsed with data streams. 2 Vraxian technicians monitored the systems, their exoskeletons gleaming under the blue light. "Non-lethal," Elias ordered. They needed information more than corpses. Nyx deployed a specialized EMP device, calibrated to Vraxian neural frequencies. Both technicians collapsed instantly, their systems temporarily paralyzed. Saren moved to the main terminal, connecting their decryption module. "I need time," she warned. "Their security is adaptive." While she worked, Elias secured one of the stunned Vraxians to a support structure. As the alien began to regain consciousness, its compound eyes focused on Elias with unmistakable recognition, not of him personally, but of his species. "Human," it clicked in its native language, which Elias's translator rendered in a synthetic monotone. "You should not be here." "Where are the survivors from Astralis?" Elias demanded. The Vraxian's mandibles twitched. "The specimens are where they belong, serving the greater understanding." Elias pressed the barrel of his weapon against a joint in the alien's exoskeleton. "Wrong answer. Location. Now." "Facility Omega-9," the Vraxian finally revealed after further persuasion. "In the Cygnus Void. But you will never reach it. The architects have decreed." "Found something," Saren interrupted. "Access codes, fleet movements, and—" She paused, her expression darkening. "Elias, you need to see this." On her screen appeared classified Vraxian reports, a meticulous catalog of human colonies targeted for suppression. Astralis had been just one of many. The document detailed the specific human advancements that threatened the Vraxian collective, or more precisely, the mysterious architects they served. They're systematically eliminating any human research that approaches dimensional manipulation. Saren explained. Your wife's quantum communication breakthrough was just the latest trigger. Another file revealed the truth about the specimens taken from attacked colonies. Human scientists forced to continue their research under Vraxian control, their innovations harvested while keeping them ignorant of how their work was being weaponized. I've located Facility Omega 9, Saren continued. It's a research station hidden in a quantum anomaly, nearly undetectable unless you know exactly what to look for. As Elias absorbed this information, alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost. We've been compromised, Nix shouted. Something triggered their security protocols. The betrayal came from within. One of their team members, Vex, a mercenary Elias had never fully trusted, had used the distraction to access a separate terminal, transmitting their presence to the Vraxian fleet. The Vraxians pay better than your revenge mission, Vex sneered, weapon raised. Before anyone could react, Kextor lunged forward with surprising speed, his claws slashing through Vex's throat. I lost my clutch to these monsters, the reptilian snarled. Consider the debt repaid. But the damage was done. Security doors sealed throughout the facility, and tactical displays showed Vraxian combat units converging on their position. Download everything and set the charges, Elias ordered. We're leaving. Their escape became a desperate fighting retreat. The team battled through increasingly heavy Vraxian resistance, suffering injuries but pushing forward. When they reached the maintenance section where their infiltration pods were docked, they found a Vraxian commander waiting with an elite guard. Unlike the technicians, this Vraxian stood nearly 8 feet tall, its exoskeleton reinforced with what appeared to be ceremonial armor. When it spoke, Elias's translator struggled with the complex dialect. Captain Elias Reeves, the commander said, the sole survivor of Astralis. Your persistence was anticipated. Elias raised his weapon. Where is my wife? Dr. Layla Reeves continues her work, as all advanced minds should, in service to those who understand the true nature of reality. The commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Her breakthrough will open doors that humanity is not ready to step through. You're wrong about humanity, Elias replied, activating the detonation sequence for the charges they'd placed. We kicked down doors we're told to leave closed. The explosion rocked the facility, throwing everyone off balance. In the chaos, Elias fired at the commander, his plasma rounds impacting the alien's reinforced armor with minimal effect. The Vraxian moved with shocking speed for its size, closing the distance between them. Your species is dangerous, it hissed, pinning Elias against a bulkhead with its primary limbs. Unpredictable, uncontrollable. The architects have witnessed your kind before, races that evolve too quickly, that reach beyond their understanding. Elias struggled against the crushing grip. Then they should have left us alone. Impossible. The pattern must be maintained. The commander leaned closer. But you have served a purpose. Your infiltration has confirmed our theories about human adaptation. With a surge of desperate strength, Elias managed to free one arm. He reached for his belt, extracting not a weapon, but the Vraxian command key. He pressed it directly against the commander's exoskeleton, where neural connectors were visible. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The key, designed to interface with Vraxian systems, created a feedback loop when connected directly to their biological components. The commander convulsed, its compound eyes flaring with internal light before it collapsed. In the aftermath, Elias and the surviving team members fought their way to the pods. 2 didn't make it. As they launched back into space, the outpost behind them erupted in secondary explosions, the communications relay dissolving into superheated debris. Aboard their escape vessel, regrouping at the emergency coordinates, Elias reviewed the data they'd stolen. Facility Omega 9's location, security protocols, research focus, everything they needed for a rescue operation was now in his hands. But something else troubled him. Fragments of information about the architects, entities that existed somehow beyond normal spacetime. The Vraxians weren't simply conquerors. They were servants of something they genuinely believed to be godlike. "What's our next move?" Nyx asked, treating a plasma burn on her arm. Elias looked up from the displays, his expression resolute. "We contact the Alliance underground. There are admirals who owe me favors, ones who lost family on other targeted colonies. With this evidence, we can convince them to provide what we need." "For a rescue mission?" Saren asked. "That's just the beginning," Elias replied. "The Vraxians and their architects think they're pruning a dangerous species, removing our potential to evolve beyond their control." He stood, looking at the star map now showing the location of Facility Omega-9. "Instead, they've just accelerated our evolution. They've created what they feared most, humans with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge." As their ship disappeared into FTL, heading toward Alliance space, Elias clutched the pendant containing his family's image. The message was sent, the first counter-strike delivered. And across the void, other human colonies who had suffered similar fates would soon hear the news. The hunted were becoming hunters. The universe had witnessed the beginning of humanity's response. The Vraxians had taken everything from one man. Now the stars themselves would burn with his retribution.